Hi there, this is Andy Ron with Montana Land Source, and this is the brief video summary of the weekly Montana Land Report for June 7th, 2023. We've had a pretty relatively active week in the Montana land market over the past week, 22 total property updates, with the bulk of that being in new listings, 10 new listings over the past week. That's pretty high. And we're slowly seeing inventory creep back up. We're up to, I think it's 353 listings on the market today. We're just seeing a slow creep of inventory build up, nothing too dramatic, but again, as a frame of reference, between COVID before 2020, it was more likely to see 600 to 700 properties on the market at any one time in Montana. And today we're sitting at about 353, but that's up from below 300. We were below 300 at the tail end of last year. So in addition, there's been 5 price changes, and those are all changes down, decreases in price. So that shows something about the market. Listing agents and sellers correcting prices to align with the market that we're seeing today. 2 properties back on the market, 4 pending sales, and 1 sale. So again, relatively high market activity over the past week. In news, the most interesting thing that's happened as of late is there was a ruling handed down in the corner crossing case in the state of Wyoming. So corner crossing refers to what is construed as legal access, and generally in the West and in Montana, when properties corner, when the properties only have a corner in common, that is not considered legal access. And where this has come to a head is on public lands and hunters using lands, and currently it is not considered legal for them to be able to cross over a corner. A corner is a finite space, point in space, and does not constitute actually connecting. And stepping over a corner fence from one property to another has not been considered legal access, but apparently some claim that that law has not been firmly settled, so that's what this case is setting out to do. The ruling was handed down in favor of the hunters who were prosecuted for trespassing for corner crossing. It's going to be appealed, so this is far from settled case law, but it's heading down that road for getting this settled as case law, and it does have big implications for land in the West. There are lots of public lands in Montana and all over the West that are not considered accessible or legally accessible because of the corner crossings issue, and so if that were to change, that would open up more public lands, which would be a good thing by some perspectives, but it's pretty easy to tell where you fall on the issue of access and corner crossings. If you are a landowner, generally you're not in favor of that, and if you are a public land user, public land hunter, you generally are. And I think a lot of people that don't own land are quick to jump to that it sounds unreasonable that should not be considered legal access. But on the other hand, I think what you have to consider, and if you talk to landowners, people that own land of any size, and especially land that has any hunting or recreational value to it, over and over again, talking to landowners, you'll hear horror stories about hunting season and whatnot and trespass issues. So it's a big issue. I think, unfortunately, what sours the whole thing is, just like in any group of people, it's always a few that ruin it. It's always a few bad apples that ruin the batch. And the problem with public access hunters is the bad apples in that group are extremely bad. They tend to be alcohol fueled and, kind of hyped up and that kind of stuff. So that's why landowners have horror stories about dealing with hunting season and whatnot. And I think one of the issues on a practical level is, if corner crossings were considered legal, you'd see lots of additional property damage and stuff. And one thing I like to throw out there is, I'd like to see someone try to bring an elk over a corner crossing. I mean, these guys in Wyoming actually built a special ladder to do their corner crossing, I guess you could argue, without doing any damage to the adjoining properties or whatnot. But at the end of it all, it's just a big issue, plays big into the Montana land market. A lot of properties are purchased in Montana. Generally, people that purchase land want exclusivity, want to be able to, enjoy that land without having to allow people on it. And a lot of public land is interspersed with private land in the West, and there's also a broader issue of even properties that adjoin public land in Montana can be a double-edged sword. In some ways, having adjoining adjoining public land, gives you access to that land. You can kind of, right next to your fence line, you've got public land that you can then utilize, but it can also bring people to your doorstep, so to speak. If you have a bunch of public land, and especially with this corner crossings issue, might have people either on your land or near your land. And again, like I said, the bad apples in the public hunter crowd is a pretty bad group to be around. Landowners have, like I said, many stories of damaged property, bullets hurtling over their family, that kind of stuff. So it's a big issue. It'll be interesting to watch. It'll probably take years to fully unwind, but does have implications long term for the Montana land market. So we will continue to track that, and maybe put together some analysis on that in the future. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We're here on YouTube and Facebook, and check out all the resources at mtlandsource.com. Thank you.